All right. All right, cool. Thank you for that, Jaypeg. Hey, I am Nerd Squared. I run a bunch of weird indie games. And continuing with that theme, I'll be running Finding Frankie. Just think of it as like Poppy Playtime, extra paying too. You'll see what I mean. Joining me is Ateatree, who is mainly here for moral support and also hosted my run of Poppy last year. But yeah, this is going to be any percent inbounds. There's a route you can take in this game where you can go from the very beginning to the very end through a route that is very not marathon safe. So instead, we're just going to be doing inbounds because it's safer and you get to see more of the game. All right, so we're going to get this quick opening cutscene. Oh, or not, apparently forgot to delete my save data. Yep, that happens. I'm just going to delete that real quick. Mouse jittering on me. Hold on. There we go. Just have to Alt-Tab out to fix it. All right. So now we're actually getting going here. So we're going to get this little intro cutscene here. Long story short, it basically reveals this like a Willy Wonka type setup where you get this exclusive invite from this cereal box and you get to participate in this game show that we're about to play. And so I'm going to skip this cutscene, and then time starts when this loading symbol disappears in the bottom right after I skip it.
You remember Double Dare? You remember the physical challenge?
Yeah,
this is basically all that.
Ooh, mouse is jittery, actually. One quick sec.
Thank you for the Double Dare callback, by the way.
Absolutely.
Actually, no, it's fine. Okay. So like I said, this is a parkour-based horror game. And the main way that manifests is this slide that you're seeing me use right here. There's a couple of different movement tricks that we got to do with that. First off, you can carry the momentum from the slide by doing bunny hopping with the scroll wheel. So we use an external program called X mouse button control to be able to do that. And also, if you slide into a wall and then do a jump like this, you gain a bit of extra height from that. So we're going to use both of those techniques kind of in tandem to do a lot of cool movement and platforming tricks throughout this run. It's very fast-paced, just warning you in advance. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening very quickly, so get used to that.
Yeah, you probably came into this thinking this is a horror run. It's marked as such on the schedule. This is a movement run.
Yeah.
There's also some horror elements, but...
Actually, it might be my mouse. Hold on, let me unplug that and plug it back in. All right. So unfortunately, that contestant's going to get killed by Frankie there. We're right at the starting line.
we didn't see it. It didn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
No spooks yet.
Yet. So anyway, we get introduced to our main mechanic here, which is going to be these breaker puzzles. You just basically activate these breakers as kind of a key to activate doors for later on. So let's just activate those real quick, go through this door, and we get to see our first real obstacle course, which is kind of a tutorial for how the parkour mechanics work, but of course we're going to skip it. We're going to do a wall jump right there with the slide jump, to skip the first half of it, and then we're going to skip the second half here with a pretty neat jump. At the top of the jump there, at the apex of it, I did a crouch, and that lets me just barely get over that railing, and we're right into this next room with another breaker puzzle. Just open this vent that's over here. As you might imagine, just watching it here, the movement is pretty difficult to execute on top of it being a pretty difficult game already, because like you have tight hallways with it being a horror game, and then you add the parkour movement on top of that, and it's even more difficult to execute.
Yeah, the timing in particular for that crouching and sliding is really tight, because if you do it too closely together, you'll end up essentially doing a neutral jump, because the vectors for your movement horizontally and vertically are kind of independent, so the vertical will override the horizontal.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks really goofy too, because like he'll slide in place and then do a jump. So that was pretty good. I was basically trying to time some jumps right there at the very edge of the vents to get some bunny hops in there, which is kind of difficult to do, as you might imagine, because the ceiling of the vents are very low.
But it's appropriate. I'm sure Frankie will be happy about it.
Yeah, well, he's not very happy right now because he's chasing us.
Fair.
And this chase takes the form of Frankie chasing after us alongside having to do a few breaker puzzles along the way. And that is a pretty good showcase right there of the parkour movement, doing some bunny hops over that gap. And this chase in general is a pretty good showcase of the movement because it doesn't look like it right now, but I'm spacing out my slides and jumps very particularly. Also, these logs can be a huge troll. They're meant to block you as you go up that hill, and they can knock you into a pit and cause you to die. So I'm hitting a quick checkpoint reload right there. Oh, hold on. Okay. I'm doing a quick checkpoint reload right there because that avoids a cutscene where we drop down here. Just saves a couple seconds. And we'll do another breaker puzzle to open this shutter. Because what we're essentially doing in this early area is trying to find a guy named Henry Hotline to figure out what happened with Frankie killing the contestants at the start, more or less. But the way there is blocked right now, so instead, to help us get there, we have to get this tool called Deputy Duck. But to get to Deputy Duck, we'd have to do yet another obstacle course, but I'm going to do the 6 set of slide jumps to get past that instead.
Yeah, the game has its parkour mechanics, and we have ours, so.
Yeah. There's actually a more advanced version of that where you can jump straight to the cylinder, but it's pretty difficult. Only, like, I'd say the top 3 runners really go for that. But we finally got to Deputy Duck. We're going to get introduced to him with a pretty cute cutscene. He's just kind of doing his own thing here, just acting all wild. I kind of just like to let the cutscene speak for itself because he just acts so goofy.
Agreed.
Yeah. Like in a second, he'll hit the ground, and when he hits the ground, you'll hear a quack. There he goes. He's a little leapy right now. Don't worry about him.
I love him.
Yeah, the classic, like, Mac alert noise.
Mm-hmm. He's kind of angry at us picking him up, though, so he's just going to angrily peck at us. But we'll just throw him at the wall to subdue him. And we'll use the radar function on Deputy Duck.
Now, that noise, when Deputy Duck activated, if anyone's played Donut County, I'm like 90% convinced the Quack Anthem is built out of that noise.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And that's actually the last time we used Deputy Duck in the run in a routing sense. Although, there is a funny glitch we can do with Deputy Duck at the end of this air duct. Because there's a cutscene right here where you drop down the air duct, and if you pull out Deputy Duck as soon as that cutscene starts, the UI of Deputy Duck is stuck on the screen when you get to the bottom. Not really useful for runs, it just looks kind of funny, so I kind of just like to do that out of boredom.
But now Deputy Duck is with us always.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, until we get to a cutscene later, then the UI will go away. All right, now we meet my personal favorite character in this game, besides Deputy Duck, Henry Hotline. His section is essentially a Slender the 8 Pages type section. We have to ring 6 phones to be able to escape. The counter is a weird discrepancy, though, because it says phones remaining 2 out of 6 when it really should say phones rang. I don't know, it's just a weird thing.
Maybe we're unringing the phones.
I guess so. Anyway, this is kind of intended to be a sort of stealth section where you're trying to ring these phones and avoiding Henry along the way. But we have a pre-planned route beforehand, so we can avoid him pretty easily. And that's a pretty good showcase of the slide jumps messing up. You saw me attempt to do it, and I didn't end up going anywhere.
And by the way, this is what everybody raised $5,000 is to see this lovely gentleman who has been pursuing us meet a quite explosive end.
Yep, we'll be seeing that in the cutscene later, thanks to y'all's donations.
Yeah, thank you everybody
Thank you
so
very
much.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll be doing a chase sequence with him, and it's supposed to be a lot longer than what you're about to see, but we have a little shortcut that we can use to our advantage. I also just want you all to listen to the music in the game in general, because it absolutely slaps. Also, I just zoomed down that hallway with some slide jumps, and almost got bonked by Frankie, but thankfully we didn't. Oh, okay, there we go. So that's a shortcut right there. I just do a crouch jump similar to what I did back earlier in the beginning area during the first course, and now we're into another course, which is Frankie's Crash Course. It's essentially this game's version of Hole in the Wall. As with normal Hole in the Wall, you have all these Frankie-themed props coming at you, and you have to kind of dodge and weave out of the way. It's also a bit of an auto scorer. You can see the timer in the back. It goes for about 1 minute. And like I said, you're supposed to dodge and weave back and forth. But there's actually a bit of a god spot here where if you stand on the left 2 columns like I am, and then you just alternate left and right, you can avoid the props pretty easily every single time.
What do you say, nerd? You want to give Jay the rest of this time for donations?
Yeah, you have time for a few.
Absolutely. All right, we have $15 from The Magic Man. Good morning. My first donation for this week, but not my last. Let's have an excellent event this week. Keep on keeping on. And $10 from Hockey Babbler saying, Nerd Squared, running a mascot horror game? It's more likely than you think. Nerd, you're a delightful person and have been a great support and friendly competition on my speedrunning journey. I believe in your ability to outrun that rabbit.
Yeah. Thanks, Babs.
Thank you so much, Babs.
Got time for a couple more?
Oh, yeah, I have time for about 1 or 2 more.
All right. An anonymous donor has sent in $51 and said, heard you needed this for something. And yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. It is donations like that that have met our wonderful incentives like Henry Hotline.
All right, so now we're in basically the back rooms of this facility. It's literally called the Utilidor in the game. I'm not kidding. And your eyes do not deceive you. We did just run over a big incinerator. Keep that incinerator in mind because we'll be coming back there for later. Because there's like a big breaker puzzle we have to do there towards the end game.
Yeah, that rail grinding movement is especially slick.
Yeah, if anyone here has played Jet Set Radio, it's basically like that in a horror game. So, like I said, we're making our way through the Utilidors. We're going to come across a familiar face. You may recognize him from the beginning of the game. That's Frankie, not the other Frankie from earlier. This is the real Frankie, not clickbait. We have a bit of a cutscene here where he just like sitting here yapping to us, talking about what our next objective is going to be, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. But this is a bit of a talking sequence, so we're time for donations.
Contestant.
All right. Well, we do have some bid wars open that I wanted to bring some attention to for One Shot, which is going to come up in a few games. Specifically, we have the player name choice for One Shot. Currently, Big Chungus is very much in the lead at $131.65. Pop and Soda are tied for second place at $40 apiece. And then we have Trans Rights, Trans Wrongs, and Trans Lefts as options for the name as well. And we have a second bid war for One Shot, which is to Return the Sun or Return Home. And Return Home is in the lead on that at $200, with Return the Sun at $85. And y'all, we do have a few games in between, but there's still plenty of time. If you've got a favorite in there and you want to bring it into the lead, I know you have time. You gotta make it happen, but you have the opportunity.
All right. So now we're in the sewers. I know, a bit of a weird jump, but we're in the sewers now. I imagine this is what the sewers look like beneath the hotel. And the reason we're actually here is because the goal that Frankie told us about before is to grab 2 keys from 2 more obstacle courses. But the power for both of those courses are out right now. So we're going to have to go turn the power on in this breaker room. Don't ask me why it's in the sewers. I don't know either. So we'll go in here, turn those 2 on real quick. Outside of bunny hopping to maintain momentum from the slides, you can just do little slides all over the place to speed yourself up a little bit. Doesn't save a whole lot, but it adds up over the course of the run. There's evil Frankie again, being all creepy. Give him a quick second to open this door. And then when he opens the door and when we get through, we'll have another kinda, sorta stealth section. And I say kinda, sorta, because it's meant to be somewhat of a stealth section, because it's just a breaker puzzle to open a door. But they introduce a bit of danger with this one, because Frankie starts chasing you after this chase sequence starts. So you can see his hand descending there. He's meant to try to grab us during this chase sequence, but he's so slow we don't really have to worry about him. He's not really that much of a threat. So when we activate that last breaker, I'm going to go ahead and do a checkpoint reload, because when the checkpoint there just puts me at the top of the stairs, so I don't have to wade through the water again, because movement through water is very slow. What's not slow, though, and good for charity, is this cutscene that y'all donated for. So there's Henry Hotline. Appropriately is in the timeout room. This is where I go sulking when my runs die. But yeah, don't worry too much about what he's saying. He's just alluding to lore that you don't really see too much of in the speedrun. And of course, he is going to meet an explosive end towards the end of this. But for about, I'd say, the next 30, 40 seconds, or donations.
Absolutely, and I do want to say, everybody, thank you so much for raising $5,000 for MSF to watch this cutscene. You know, it's a very cathartic cutscene, and also all of that money is going to such an incredible cause. So thank you so much for that. And we have some wonderful generous donations from people like Monkey Thief, who donated $25 to MSF and said, more incentives means more GDQ, and we all want more GDQ. Thanks to all the runners, commentators, and everyone working behind the scenes too. Yes, shout out to our incredible tech team, social media team, production. Y'all, they are absolutely crushing it. Donations. And also $120 from SR Engineers saying, greetings from Germany. Thank you so much. Greetings back to you.
Yeah, we're going to tune back into what Henry's up to because he's about to get an important call here.
Hello?
Oh.
And that's what happens when you don't pick up that call about your car's extended warranty.
Exactly.
That's what happens on the other end of the line, not to you.
Yeah. Yeah, a little fun fact about that cutscene. You actually get an achievement for watching that cutscene all the way through. That is not a joke. And I believe the actual literal name for the achievement, and I believe it's on Steam and consoles, because this game was on consoles, is Please Leave a Message. Thank you, Super Lou, for adding that in. Anyway, we're on to the first of the next two obstacle courses. This is the Trampoline Park. The Trampoline Park is kind of another series of mini-games. We have the ring mini-game that we just did, where we just simply jump through the hoops. And now we have to chase after some noobs. Don't worry what I'm doing to the noobs. We're catching them, supposedly.
Yeah, they're 90% pizza sauce by volume, so when you tickle them, pizza sauce comes out.
Yeah.
And they're screaming because they're so excited.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd like to imagine when we actually catch them, we just poke them and they pop like a balloon. But yeah, this is pretty much mostly what the section is comprised of, just alternating back and forth between doing the rings and catching the noobs.
Yeah, the difficulty there, especially in the noob section, is while the spawns are determinate, which is to say they'll always be in the same place, which is why Nerd is starting in the location they are, the movement is not.
Yeah, and there's actually a bit of a skip you can do here if you get lucky, because there's a key in the middle of this arena, so technically you could just go and grab it early by jumping on one of the rings as they rise up. But it's pretty difficult to do because you have a very thin ledge to stand on with those rings, and you only get 3 tries to do it before you start losing time. I also grabbed the key as it descended there, just to grab it a bit early. And normally I would do a checkpoint reload right there after grabbing the key, because you get a checkpoint when you grab it. But it's a bit slower RTA, so I opted not to do it. Anyway, if you remember that incinerator room, we'll be returning to that, because now that we have our first key, we'll be trying to go to the final area of the game, Frosted Peak. But we need to do a breaker puzzle again to activate the door that leads to that area. And this puzzle, again, introduces a bit of danger, because we have to do it over that big incinerator that we were going over before. And I make this movement look easy, though it kind of is. But like I said, there's a danger factor to it. There's an incinerator below us the entire time. And so if I mess up a jump where I'm trying to skip between rails and fall in that pit, it's an instant death. Thankfully, though, there is kind of a bit of leeway with it, because if you do end up dying, the game does save your state with the amount of breakers you've hit and whatnot. Also, when I opened that door right there, you saw 2 keys required, but I only put in 1. There's a weird bug on the release version of the game, which is what I'm running on, version 1.0, where you only have to put in 1 key to activate that door instead of 2. Weird old patch bug is what it comes down to pretty much.
Yeah, otherwise we would have to go into a whole different area with a water park. Which
is
fun,
very slow.
Yeah.
So we have
Remember what we said about water physics?
Uh-huh. Anyway, we have this last obstacle course, which has a lot of small movement skips, kind of like what I did in the obstacle courses throughout this run. I did one there on those rotating bars to skip taking a trampoline. I did a slide jump right there to avoid a trigger that would normally cause some purple goop to gradually rise as we do this last obstacle course. This one we have to deal with one of those cylinders. I got bopped down, but that's fine. I got bopped down again.
Because we despawned what is essentially the actual time-gated danger in this zone, we can really just take it at pace. And as you can see here, is particularly on the release candidate of the game, some obstacles are more suggestions than others. So by using well-timed slide jumps, we can trivialize some portion of the obstacle course here.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, though, because if you accidentally do it in the wrong place, you can end up falling off the obstacle course and have to start from the very beginning of it. There is also a shortcut I could have done there by jumping on those lights, but it's a little tricky, so I opted to not go for it. I did go for those slides, though, which is a pretty neat shortcut. So we're pretty much done with the bulk of Frosted Peak, but we have one last obstacle here, which is the bane of my existence in runs, and it's a big gatekeeper of whether I get a PB or not, because it's like that cylinder we encountered during Deputy Duck's course, but with saw blades everywhere.
Okay, we'll take a little low over a little high.
Yeah, but we got past the first try. Even if you don't get it super cleanly, you can still recover it. You just
don't want to slide at such a place that your momentum carries you off the sides or too far to the top, because that'll put you in the saw blades.
Yep. Anyways, if anyone here has played Fall Guys by chance, that's basically what we're doing for our final boss. I'm not kidding, because it's literally the hexagon stage from that game verbatim. Before actually starting that, though, I'm going to hit a checkpoint reload right there. That skips a cutscene where evil Frankie dive bombs into the arena. There's also a bit of lost collision here in the floor, so we can just pop right through and start the fight. That avoids a cutscene where good Frankie basically wishes us good luck. And we're just going to do the hexagon game. There's a bit of cheese I'm going to try to go for at the start of it. If Frankie doesn't kill me, okay. Yeah, there's a bit of danger with that one, because you're trying to stay in one place to go to where the first plate dissolved that you stood on.
Yeah, unlike how you normally play the hexagon game, here we're specifically falling as fast as possible, and you'll see why in a moment.
Yeah, because we're trying to set up a cheese strat to basically get to a spot where Frankie can't get to us. So just dive in this corner. There we go.
That'll do it.
Yep. So we're basically in this cheese spot where we can sit for the next 2 minutes, because this is kind of similar to the Crash Course, a timed survival section. And like I said, we just have to wait here for a little bit, although there's a bit of a funny dialogue we can get in a second. If anyone has played this game or even just heard the soundtrack, you know what's coming up. So we'll let Frankie get a quick word in here. Thank you, Frankie, for that. He censored himself, so we're fine. But yeah, like I said, this is basically a 2-minute time survival section. We just have to sit here and wait. So we can probably throw it to donations for a little bit.
Absolutely.
Of course. All right, I have $25 sent in from Nature Kicks that says, I love SGDQ Week because when I wake up at 4 a.m. without meaning to, there's rad stuff happening and I can donate to a good cause. I'm putting this towards naming the one-shot character Trans Rights. Absolutely. As a reminder, that is one of our player name choices for One Shot, and that has put Trans Rights in second place with $60. Big Chungus is still in the lead at $131.65, but you can make a difference and change that. And we also have $10 here from Aksanyi that says, I'm up way too early. But no matter, it just means I get to enjoy more GDQ runs. I can sleep when GDQ is over. That's how it works, right? Here's the deal. We do encourage that you get good rest. We already had some breakfast, so we also encourage eating well, being hydrated, and getting a little exercise in, which is what is happening right here. You know, this is exercise in this run, parkour run. Yeah.
So time is coming up on a little bit. It'll be when I flip this lever after this countdown is done, so in about 5-ish seconds. All right, time.
GG.
Thank you. I know it's a bit early, but hopefully that was enough. Also, this is our reward for defeating Frankie. He's going to get dunked on by a bunch of noobs that were stored in that tube. This ending is kind of funny because like we get this ending scene where he gets dunked on, and then we get thrown to some fake credits before we get thrown to the real credits. I'm just waiting until we get there so we can do shoutouts when we get there. But I guess one quick shout out I can do real quick is to Superloo Games. They are the developers of this game, and I love this game to bits. It came out during a period of time between the yearly Poppy releases where there was a bit of a drought of mascot horror games. So this was a very pleasant surprise I just randomly stumbled on through YouTube. So thank you, Superloo, for making this. Those are definitely not Squid Game bowl of money right there. Our 5 million cash prize, as he says. But yeah, I already gave my shout-outs to Superloo. Some other quick shout-outs I want to give real quickly while we're doing this ending. Of course, Ateatree for couching and giving moral support and stuff. Jaypeg for hosting, you were great. And also just to GDQ for letting me run Mascot Horror again. I randomly stumbled into maining Mascot Horror for the past couple of years, and it's just nice to run the game from that kind of genre, even though it's kind of niche, for the third time now, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I think that's mainly it for me. I will be commentating 2 runs later in the week, which you should check out. Still Wakes the Deep and Balatro. Both of these runs are going to be super sick. And also definitely check out the run after this. If you thought the main character in this game was fast, it's got nothing on Ao Oni. You're going to be in for a treat with that. I think that's it for me. Thanks.